The day I won $47 million. The woman who said nothing. If you suddenly received $47 million, who would you tell? Or would you tell no one at all? The day I won $47 million in the lottery, the first thing I did was decide to tell no one. My name is Cathy Wilson. I'm an accountant in my 30s. Cautious, a bit timid. But that night was different. That was the night my life quietly began to change. The pale blue glow of the television lit up the walls of my small studio apartment. I held a slightly damp paper ticket between my fingers. The moisture from my fingertips had made the paper a bit soft. I pinched it as if afraid of being burned. 6 numbers lined up. 3, 16, 12, 21, 9, 30. The same numbers appeared again on the news replay. My heart skipped a beat. My breathing became shallow. The air in the room suddenly felt tight. No way. The remote fell onto the carpet with a dry sound. The weight I felt couldn't be explained by the weight of paper alone. The ticket felt impossibly heavy in my hand. I slowly sat down in my chair. I pressed both elbows against my temples. The displayed jackpot amount thrust reality at me mercilessly. $47 million. About $28 million after taxes. The numbers were terrifyingly quiet. Rain tapped against the window. In the distance, a car cut through a puddle. The world continued as usual. Yet my world alone creaked as it changed course. I won't tell anyone. When I spoke the words aloud, they clicked shut like a lock inside my chest. Resolve came before celebration. I'm the type of person who imagines destruction before joy. Family, workplace, the past. Every memory involving money connected like dark film being edited together. My mother used to laugh, saying, "The lottery is a tax on mathematical losers." My father lectured me with probability theory. My sister would joke, "It'd be more efficient if you just gave me that $10 each week directly." My brother would boast, "When the time comes, I'll help you multiply it." The result was always the same. I gave, they received. The only return was an invisible day you called. Because we're family. I stood up and picked up my phone. I searched through my contacts for one name. My thumb hesitated for just a moment. Philip Montgomery, a lawyer specializing in finance and estate planning. I'd consulted him once for tax filing, and he'd saved me $3,000 with careful, ethical work. He'd been the only professional who treated my modest income with the same respect he'd give a millionaire. When morning came, I would visit his office again, deciding on procedure before emotion. Was it because I was an accountant? Or was it because years of a family history of exploitation had ingrained the habit of protecting myself? The next morning, I called in absent from work for the first time for a reason other than paid leave. My voice was surprisingly calm. It didn't sound like my own. A high-rise building downtown. The sound of my sneakers echoed softly on the polished marble floor. I passed the reception desk. I took a breath before the heavy door. "Miss Wilson, please come in." Philip smiled from behind his tasteful glasses. "What brings you here today?" I pulled an envelope from my bag. I placed it straight on the corner of his desk. "Please tell me how to claim this without anyone knowing." His eyebrow moved for just a moment. His face immediately returned to professional mode. "Let me take a look." He paused. "I see. Congratulations. And now, the real work begins." He calmly wrote 3 words on the whiteboard. Blind trust. Taxes. Team. First, we create a system for you to claim it while hiding your identity. A blind trust acts as an anonymous shield. You transfer the ticket to the trust. The trust claims the prize, and your name never appears in public records. Next, tax handling. Finally, a team of specialists on your side. The biggest mistake is talking. The moment you talk, you can't get control back. I nodded slightly. "I won't tell anyone, not even my parents or best friend." "That's wise. Today, let's start on several designs. Victory or defeat is decided before claiming. The same is true even for the lottery." 2 hours later, I held a thick bundle of documents and a to-do list. Legal structures, accounts, investment policies, crisis management, communication channels. My life was quietly becoming duplicated. The exterior remained the same, but inside I moved with a different map. I looked down from the hallway window at people flowing like ants on the distant sidewalk. Not one of them knew I had just acquired a different gravity. By the time 6 weeks had passed, the numbers had become reality. The row of zeros reflected in my account was like a sea without body temperature. Still, I woke at 6 as usual. I made coffee. I drove my old Corolla to work. I smiled wryly at my boss Arnold's credit stealing. And I filled in for my colleague Derek's early departure. The only difference from before was the quiet stirring that visited only after I turned off the lights at night. The question, "Is this okay?" The answer took shape on a rainy night. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. I pictured each family member's face one by one. Mother and stepfather Warren, father and stepmother Stephanie, sister Lisa and brother-in-law Paul, brother Jason, Aunt Martha, Aunt Heather, cousin Ryan. 10 names, 10 pasts, 10 accounts of debts and loans. When they were in trouble, I opened my wallet. When I was in trouble, what did they do? If there were a situation with absolutely no smell of money, would they help me? I slowly wrote in the notebook by my pillow. Family test. The same story. Same conditions. Same amount. Company suddenly closed. Wages unpaid. Need $5,000 for rent and medical bills. Job hunting. Will definitely repay. Memories flooded back unbidden. 3 years ago, when I needed $800 for a root canal. Mother said, "Can't it wait?" Father lectured me about dental insurance. Lisa was between paychecks. Jason said he'd help, then never returned my calls. I paid for it myself, working overtime until my eyes burned. 2 months later, Lisa needed $1,200 for her son's birthday party. A party. Not medicine, not rent. A party. I gave it. She said, "You're the best sister." Then spent the next hour showing me photos of the bounce house I'd funded. The pattern was clear. I was a wallet that walked and talked. But the worst part? I kept opening it. Every time. Because saying no meant being selfish. Saying no meant hearing Mother's disappointed sigh. Saying no meant watching Father's expression shift from warmth to cold assessment. I looked at the lottery ticket one more time, then locked it in my desk drawer. This money would not disappear into their bottomless needs. Not this time. I built the test down to the details. The reason for bankruptcy. The delay in unemployment insurance. Vague mentions of tests received. Application status. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted reactions. An interest-free, one-time vote for me. The next day, I conveyed only the outline of the plan to Philip. I reconfirmed the portability and security of the assets. Keep cash accounts to the bare minimum. Lock the rest in long-term structures. No one can sniff it out. Thank you. I want to see the truth. That night, while sipping wine on the balcony, I told only the skeleton of the plan to my best friend Charlotte. She's a nurse. My mirror of 10 years. Cathy, isn't that a bit of a dangerous bridge to cross? I know, but I can't live on assumptions anymore. Being honest would be more like you. Honesty only pays off when the person receiving it is honest. After saying it, I thought it sounded a bit cold myself, but that coldness was also a thin membrane protecting my skin. Charlotte exhaled and set down her glass. Then at least don't let yourself get hurt. Keep your words short, numbers clear. Don't force promises. Okay. And leave at least one person to believe in. I looked into her eyes. I will. The first call was to my mother. "Mom, do you have a minute?" She seemed busy talking about her new lakeside house. I conveyed the prepared story with only the necessary emotion. The company's sudden closure. Unpaid wages. $5,000. Silence. Oh my, that's terrible. But Warren, and I just put down a deposit. Have you talked to your father? Lisa's household has money. I answered in what I thought was a laughing voice. You're right. After the call, I wrote briefly in my notebook. Concern, deflection, pending. Next, my father. At a window seat in a cafe, he switched to his teacher voice. That's why I told you to save 6 months of living expenses. Cut cable, move to a cheaper area, reduce spending. The verb help never appeared until the end. I wrote in my notebook. Lecture, zero support. My sister Lisa furrowed her brow while scooping latte foam in her spacious kitchen. That's terrible. But right now, the kids' tuition and the bathroom remodel are overlapping. I'll ask Paul though. Bathroom. I marked that word. To my brother Jason, a long text. What came back was a short sentence and the silence of read. Stepmother Stephanie recited a lecture on personal responsibility over the phone. Stepfather Warren said in a dry voice, "You're not my daughter." Cousin Ryan said, "I'll give you a check at lunch next time," then canceled on the day and got buried in the sand of Reed. Aunt Heather declared victory, saying, "That's why I told you to go to the bank." And by evening the rumor had made its way through the family. 7 expectations, 7 absences. I sat in my car outside a grocery store, unable to drive home. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The parking lot lights flickered on as dusk settled. 7 people, 7 rejections. Even the maybes were no stressed in polite clothing. I thought of all the times I'd said yes. The $500 for father's investment opportunity that vanished. The $2,000 I'd lent Jason 3 years ago. Just until my bonus comes through, he promised. I was still waiting. The countless dinners I'd paid for while they ordered appetizers and desserts without glancing at prices. A woman walked past my car, carrying grocery bags, laughing on her phone. Normal life. I'd forgotten what that looked like. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. "Did you figure out the money situation? Let me know." No offer. Just curiosity about whether I'd solved my own crisis. I wanted to scream. Instead, I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that scared me. What hurt most wasn't the rejection. It was the realization that I'd known. Deep down, I'd always known. The test merely confirmed what my heart had been whispering for years. I was alone in a crowd of relatives. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. The leather was cool against my skin. I could give them everything now. Every wish, every want. I could erase their debts and fund their dreams. But why would I feed mouths that had watched me starve? I lay exhausted on the sofa. I counted the cracks in the ceiling. The experiment was as cruel as expected, and more painful than anticipated. That's when my phone vibrated. The name on the screen, Martha. My only exception. The aunt who smells like libraries. "Cathy, I heard about you from Mom. Are you okay?" I stopped the prepared story midway. She didn't interrupt until the end. Her questions always came from the position of my health. "How about lunch together tomorrow?" My treat. The next day, a small diner. Martha wore a cardigan with mismatched buttons. She smiled softly as always. After the meal, she slid an envelope across. $3,000. Not all of it, but it'll help with rent. I shook my head. No, I can't. Family isn't something you only claim when it's convenient. The texture of the paper in the envelope felt much heavier than the lottery ticket. I learned later. This was most of her savings. Diabetes medication prices had risen. She'd been increasing her tutoring jobs. In the car, I choked up. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. Hey God, why don't people like this have the most? That night, I invited Martha to my apartment. I told her the truth. I'm sorry. I didn't lose my job. It was all a testament. She narrowed her eyes slightly, then eventually nodded. I'm not angry. I'm sad, but I understand. I offered the other truth, and I won. The lottery. $47 million. After shock, she laughed quietly. Then first, let's have some warm tea. We can talk after. Late that night, I headed to Philip's office once more. For my aunt, an anonymous trust, so her medical expenses and living foundation never waver for life, in a form that protects her dignity. Possible. Monthly payments, direct medical payments, asset preservation. I'll structure it. I nodded and held out another paper. And a family meeting this weekend. I won't talk about money, just boundaries. Philip twirled his pen and looked into my eyes. The boundaries you decide today are your own worth. On the way home, the rain had stopped. Wet asphalt stretched neon lights. Only the world at my feet was a bit brighter. I added one last line to the memo on my phone. I will choose who my real family is. Sunday afternoon, a month after claiming the prize. 10 chairs lined up in my small living room. Old sofa, folding chairs, even round stools borrowed from the kitchen. All mobilized. The air was heavy with tension. Damp silence slowly crawled through the gaps in breathing. Mother traced her pearl necklace with her finger. Father glanced at his wristwatch. Stephanie left a strong scent of perfume. Warren furrowed his brow scrolling through a news app. Sister Lisa kept her eyes on her smartwatch. Husband Paul stared at the wall, holding a mug. Brother Jason didn't take off his cap. Aunt Heather held her chin high. Ryan fiddled with his nails, looking thoroughly bored. And in the back row, Martha. Quiet, just looking at me. I took a deep breath. I steadied my voice. Today, I've gathered you because there's something I want to talk about directly. Silence. The gloss of Mother's lipstick floated like a spotlight. I'm okay now. Okay? What do you mean? Mother raised her eyebrow. I found a new job. The salary is higher. And my health insurance is set. Sorry for worrying you. Sounds like sighs of relief popped softly here and there in the room. Relief that responsibility avoidance was confirmed rather than genuine relief. Father nodded. That's good. After all, hardship makes people grow. Stephanie continued. We're relieved too. This time, start saving for real. I kept my smile and replied calmly. Yes, saving is important. But I didn't intend to end it there. I placed my notebook in the center of the table. Inside, I had written down our exchanges in chronological order. There's just one thing I want to confirm. I flipped through the pages lightly. I stopped the pen tip. Mom, you said last week you'd consult with Warren, right? What was the result? Mother lost her words for a moment. She hastily made a smile. Well, it wasn't possible. Because of the loan. I see. Thank you. Dad, you told me it was a learning opportunity. That's right. I said harsh things, but out of love. Was that so? I found it impressive that the budgeting advice came before love. The air around us roughened slightly. Jason looked away while fidgeting with his cap brim. What are you trying to say? Nothing. Just confirming records. I turned the page. Lisa, you said you don't have room because of the bathroom remodel. Don't say it like that. Lisa looked up. I just thought realistically. I wanted to help. I received your feelings. The amount was zero, though. Aunt Heather sighed. Accusing like this is undignified, Cathy. You just want to make yourself look like a victim. I looked straight at her. Maybe so. But when I asked for help, I was the one told, don't play victim. Only Martha nodded with a calm expression. Her eyes said, you can continue. I closed the notebook. I placed both hands on the table. Today, I want to tell everyone just one thing. I will no longer whittle myself down to suit someone's convenience just because we are family. Warren laughed through his nose. So, what's this gathering for? A sermon? No, a report. I've taken back the wheel of my own life. Dramatic, Stephanie muttered. Yes, it's my life. So I can be dramatic. Jason interrupted. So you won't rely on us anymore? Don't need help? That's right. I won't ask any more other. If someone is in trouble, I'll only look at that person's sincerity. Silence. Mother finally spoke. Cathy, you really can't trust us that much. It's not can I trust. It's have you done things worthy of trust. The words cut through the air like a blade. Then something unexpected happened. Lisa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You know what? You're right. Her voice cracked. I'm ashamed. I spent $1,200 on a party while you were drowning. I knew it. And I did it anyway. The room went silent. Even Heather stopped fidgeting. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I've been a terrible sister. And the worst part? I convinced myself it was okay because you always managed somehow. You were responsible, Cathy. You'd figure it out. So I didn't have to. Her honesty hit harder than any accusation I could have made. But then Heather sneered. Oh, please. This is manipulative theater. Cathy, you orchestrated this whole drama to make us grovel. No? Martha's quiet voice cut through. She needed to see the truth. And now she has. Warren stood, his face flushed. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. Me too, Stephanie added, grabbing her purse. As they filed out, the room divided clearly. Those who couldn't face themselves, and those willing to try. Father paused at the door. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, You've become hard, Cathy. No, Dad. I replied softly. I've become honest. The sound of Father pulling his chair echoed strangely. The meeting ended in less than an hour. No one else apologized. No one truly looked at me. But that was fine. I'd won. I'd proven my point. I'd drawn my boundaries. So why did victory taste like ashes? Martha touched my shoulder gently. Winning isn't always sweet, dear. Sometimes it just means you survive. I thought I'd feel free, I whispered. But I just feel empty. That's because you're grieving, she said. You're mourning the family you wished you had. That grief is necessary. Feel it, then let it go. Their indifference became proof guaranteeing my freedom. Only Martha remained at the end. While clearing plates from the table, she said, "Weren't you scared?" "Yes, a little." But continuing the lie was scarier. Martha smiled. "That's my niece." Outside, the sunset was dyeing the window crimson. In that light, I inhaled deeply from the bottom of my heart for the first time. Like a weight had fallen away. The sounds of the world returned. The sound of cars driving, children's laughter, trees swaying in the wind. Everything sounded clearer than before. I was no longer a supporting character in someone else's story. My life was something I would write from now on. The next morning, I woke early. The words from yesterday's family meeting still echoed in the back of my mind. Not anger or regret, just quiet. A new hollow had formed in my heart. Strangely, it felt comfortable. Outside the window, a small bird hopped on a rain-washed branch. I opened my laptop while making coffee. Subject: Aunt Martha Trust. I opened the email thread with Philip the lawyer. I recalled yesterday's conversation. Let's design it as monthly payments, automatically subsidizing living and medical expenses. Philip's proposal was rational. I wanted it so Martha wouldn't have to accept it as a gift by force. Under the name Family Fund, paid periodically from my personal account. Philip was the contractual administrator. She wouldn't even know I had donated. Can you process it as an anonymous donation? Of course. She's a proud person. I understand. During the 2 weeks it took for the procedures to be completed, I prepared to quit my job. At the office, people whispered, "You're finally escaping." My boss Arnold tried to keep me until the end. But when I told him, "I've already decided on my next job," his face contorted for just a moment. The next job was a place I would create myself. Elder Light Foundation, a nonprofit organization aimed at supporting lonely elderly people's lives and protecting them from financial abuse. Martha's story was the catalyst, a place where elderly people abandoned by family could live in peace. As I wrote the principles, I felt a light ignite deep in my chest. "So you really quit your company?" Charlotte said. Her voice had a slightly proud tone more than surprise. "Yeah. Finally, I feel like I can handle the ledger of people's hearts instead of the ledger of numbers." Sounds like a famous quote, but when you say it, you're serious. Wine glasses touched lightly. "So, that plan the support for Aunt Martha? The procedures are finished. Her medical expenses. No need to worry anymore. Will you tell her?" "No. She doesn't need to know." "Why?" "If she feels indebted, that would tarnish her kindness. So I don't need gratitude. I just want to live like her." Charlotte nodded quietly. "You've really changed. Probably I'm just finally able to choose pride over fear." Several weeks passed. As spring turned to early summer, I visited Martha's house. When I opened the front door, the sweet smell of cinnamon drifted out. She was in an apron, baking scones. Oh, perfect timing. I needed a taste tester. I laughed as I received the plate. Warm. The scent of butter was gentle. "Auntie, how are you?" "Blood sugar is good. Since the medication changed, I feel lighter." That was proof my anonymous support was working. But I only answered, "That's good." We sat by the window together. We watched the sunset outside. Martha's profile looked a little golden in the sunlight. "Hey, Cathy. Money is strange." "How so?" "Having it worries you. Not having it worries you. But when you use it correctly, both worries settle." That's a famous quote. She laughed. A side effect of being an old teacher. "Come to think of it, I heard you quit your job?" "Yeah. From now on, I'll do it myself. I'm creating an organization called Elder Light." "Lovely." "I decided after seeing how you live, I want to become someone who doesn't lose pride even without being relied on by others." Martha narrowed her eyes. "Pride isn't something someone gives you. It's about the attitude of continuing to choose." Her words dropped straight into my heart. I gently placed my hand over hers. "Thank you." "For what?" "For showing me the right answer of being human." Silence fell between us. But that silence held a comfortable weight. Wind swayed the curtain. Somewhere, a wind chime rang. Outside, the sunset was dyeing the window crimson. In that light, I inhaled deeply from the bottom of my heart. Like a weight had fallen away. The sounds of the world returned. The sound of cars driving, children's laughter, trees swaying in the wind. Everything sounded clearer than before. That night, I sat at my desk. I completed the foundation establishment application. Purpose: supporting the independence of elderly people who are economically and socially isolated. As I signed, the ink slowly soaked into the paper. I inhaled deeply. I exhaled quietly. The lottery winnings balance displayed briefly at the edge of the screen. But even seeing it, my heart no longer stirred. My real asset isn't numbers. It's myself, finally able to choose who I want to be supported by in life. The next morning, I put the application envelope in the mailbox. Under the blue sky, wind ruffled my hair. Strangely, I felt much more free now than the moment I gripped that lottery ticket. With this, registration is officially complete. The woman at the window received the documents. She stamped them. The dry sound echoed like a punctuation mark on a long journey. In that instant, something burst deep in my chest. Elder Light Foundation. Finally, it had become real. The office was an old rental space. The ceiling fluorescent lights flickered slightly, but the houseplant placed by the window faintly reflected light. On the desk, a used laptop and one notebook. On the first page, I'd scribbled Martha's words. Pride isn't something given by someone. It's about the attitude of continuing to choose. I traced it with my finger. I murmured quietly. From here then. The first weeks were chaotic. Grant applications, accounting reports, volunteer recruitment. But instead of exhaustion, I felt alive. Martha brought sandwiches weekly. Eating properly? She'd ask, already knowing the answer. Support seekers gradually appeared. Elderly people abandoned by family, victims of financial abuse, forgotten souls. Each story mirrored my own invisible suffering. One day, while interviewing volunteers at reception, the door opened. I heard you're looking for people to work here. A familiar face. Charlotte. I heard users needing medical care are increasing, and I thought my skills might be useful. I never thought you'd really come. If you're serious, I'll be serious too. We laughed together. That laughter no longer held any element of testing or shadow of doubt. It was a reunion shaped like trust. Several days later, she officially joined as medical and living support coordinator. With her presence, the organization suddenly began to move. Visit support schedule management, coordination with care facilities, liaison with hospitals. Her experience became a compass guiding light. Hey, Cathy. Don't you feel like we're creating a little miracle? I think that's called regeneration. End of spring. I held the first donation report meeting. The venue was full with a dozen or so visitors. On the walls hung photos of elderly people who'd received support. Peaceful smiles. Beggars planting flowers in gardens. Among them was a photo taken with Martha. She smiled shyly, her hand on my shoulder. My turn to speak came. I stood before the microphone. I looked out at the venue. Deep breath. Many of you here today know how hard it is to trust others. But precisely because you've had experiences where you couldn't trust, you can find the value in believing. This organization stands on such small lights of trust. Applause arose. In it, I saw Martha's teary face. I continued my words. Money decreases when you use it, but kindness increases the more you use it. And I think people save themselves by reaching out to others. After the report meeting, Martha murmured softly, "You've become so admirable." No, I've just finally rebuilt myself. Night. On the way home, streetlights illuminated the pavement. Several unread messages had arrived on my smartphone. Lisa, want to meet after a while. The kids want to see you. Dad, I saw you at that lecture. Proud of you. I stared at the screen for a while. It wasn't that I wasn't happy, but I no longer needed to live premised on forgiveness. The past was organized. I now had the right to choose the future. I typed briefly in the reply field. Thank you. Let's talk sometime soon. When I pressed send, my chest strangely lightened. Letting go of hatred isn't defeat. It's finally having the courage to end it. Wind blew through. I looked up at the sky. Whether the stars looked slightly blurred because of the night air or because of tears, I couldn't tell. The wind of early summer blew through the window. At the Elder Light office, a new sign had been hung. Community room. There, smiling people gathered, talking quietly. A place where isolated elderly people were called by their names again. What I'd always wanted. I could now give to others. Martha sat on the sofa, peacefully drinking tea. This place of yours, it calms the heart. Thank you. I learned by seeing your place of belonging. Place of belonging. Once upon a time, there should have been one. Her eyes gazed into the distance. I quietly handed her a cup. Here is your new place of belonging too. In such peaceful days. One sealed letter arrived. The moment I saw the sender's name, my breath stopped. My brother, Jason. When I opened it, there was a handwritten letter inside. I saw it on the news. Your foundation. It's amazing. I watched the interview 3 times. Each time, I heard your words from that Sunday. Have you done things worthy of trust? I couldn't answer then. I still can't, but I want to try. Honestly, I'm ashamed. Not for not lending money, but for not listening to your words. For making excuses instead of looking at you. If I could start over, I'd like to help. Not with money, with time, with sincerity. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking anyway. My hands trembled, not with anger or tears, but as if something deep in my heart was slowly unraveling. Blaming the past won't change anything, but if you have the courage to accept the past, you can change the future. I wrote a reply. Thank you. I think our relationship can restart, but this time with sincerity, not interests. Several weeks later, my brother visited the Elder Light office. An awkward smile, an extended hand. I'm looking for a new job. You have accounting experience, right? We need numbers even for nonprofits. So you'll hire me? With a probation period. We laughed together. It was like before, but not the same laugh anymore. I could see the invisible wall between us gradually becoming transparent. One autumn day, 8 months after I claimed the prize, Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her last words were calm, almost like a prayer. Cathy, don't let the light go out. I nodded quietly. Faster than tears could stream down my cheeks. I felt something had been inherited in my heart. On the day of the funeral, family gathered. Mother bowed her head slightly. Father silently offered flowers. Lisa was crying, and Jason placed his hand on my shoulder. She was proud of you. Yeah, I know. That night, a notebook was found among Martha's belongings. On the cover, "Only for Cassie" was written. Inside were short words she'd left. Everyone is born loved by someone, but while living, they forget it. That's why we need places that remind us of love. You must become someone who creates that place. When I closed the notebook, something quietly burned deep in my chest. Not hatred, but a fire of gratitude. That fire flickered inside me like an eternal light. The next day, a new event was held in the Elder Light Hall. The title, Light of Home. An event where isolated elderly people spoke of their dreams, and young people listened. One man stood on stage and gripped the microphone. Until a few years ago, I'd lost my family and was about to lose my life. But here I found a new family. Not blood connections, but heart connections. Applause echoed. As I watched that scene, I suddenly remembered Martha's smile, and I answered my own heart. I won't make promises like tell no one anymore. From now on, I'll share the light. 1 year after that October night, when I won the lottery, the Elder Light Foundation had registered supporters exceeding 1,200. Cassie Wilson received the National Social Service Award. Now and always, I will live by the words in Martha's notebook. Become someone who creates places that remind us of love. Like her, who overcame injustice and reclaimed herself, there is still light remaining within you too. May this story become a catalyst for someone's fresh start.